Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back. I'm glad to have everyone here at another daily creative challenge. My name is Jesus Ramirez. How are you guys doing today? I can see in the chat that we have a ton of people with us already. Sam, Adam, Carlos, Greg, Kat, Rafael, Stephanie, thank you so much for being here with me today. I see that we have some people from the UK, Northern California, sunny Northern California. That's where I'm at. I am in the San Francisco Bay Area and I haven't been outside yet, but it looks like it's really sunny and nice out there. This is going to be the Daily Creative Challenge number 6, if I'm not mistaken. Here we are. Yes, Design with Mass Daily Creative Challenge number 6. If you haven't already, please go to behance.net/challenge/Photoshop and make sure that you click on this big blue button and join the challenge and take the challenge with me and with everybody else watching. I want to point out that for today's challenge, you will need a file. Make sure that you come into the Design with Mask option and click on Get Started. That will open up a new tab that will have a downloadable PSD, a downloadable PSD with Adobe stock images that you can use to practice. And if you really like them and you want to use them on your project, then you can go ahead and license those images. Also, while you're here on this page, make sure that you scroll down and click on the Chat with the Community button, or go to that link right up above my head and you'll be able to check out the Discord page where people will be posting the projects that they've been creating during these creative challenges. You can see that we got some Lion King text, which is pretty cool. That's what we worked on yesterday. We used layer styles to apply the Lion King text effect to a text layer. And if you scroll up, you'll see that somebody is already working on today's project, which is pretty cool. So I'm guessing this is their first run without me showing them how to do it, and that's totally cool. You can definitely do that. But make sure that you watch the stream so that you can learn some Photoshop tips and tricks. So make sure that you come into the Discord app page, click on Current Challenge, and upload all the work that you've done. I really like this one, The Night King. Good idea. Any Game of Thrones fans out there? I don't want to start anything about the last season of Game of Thrones, but as a fan, I was disappointed. I don't know what you guys think. Maybe I'll see some comments in the chat, and hopefully there's no profanity on Game of Thrones and the last season. But anyway, this is another of the challenges: how to replace a sky and change the time of day. It's a really good one. Highly recommended. So anyway, just come into the Discord app. You can go into that link right up above my head and join me and the other Adobe mentors who are right here. We got Claudie, Sam, and Tim, myself. So make sure that you come in here and follow along with me, post, ask question, comments, and you can also go into the different tabs, such as the past challenge tab, ask questions, tips and tricks, a whole bunch of cool stuff. So I highly recommend that you get on there. Also, one thing before we get started, I want to mention that we do have the Daily Creative Challenge feedback survey, which will allow you to enter to win a 1-year Creative Cloud subscription. You have to fill this out by tomorrow. So make sure that you come into this page, and I'll copy the link and I'll paste it in the chat so that you guys could see it, and there it is. So make sure that you fill this out by tomorrow and you'll be entered to possibly win a 1-year subscription to the Creative Cloud. So check it out. It's very easy. Just click on Get Started and follow the questions. Very simple. So once again, for today's challenge, you need to go to behance.net/challenge/Photoshop and go into right here, Design with Mask, and click on the Get Started button to download the file that we're going to use. So let me bring up Photoshop, and that's what we're going to create in the next 15 or so minutes. So your file would look a lot more like that with the text layer on the side. I'm not going to worry about the text layer, but you have the text layer in there in case you want to change the text or do something with it. So the main point of this tutorial is to show you how to mask something that has a white background, but it's also transparent. So we're going to use blending modes to achieve that. And I'm just going to start out by, first of all, why is my water bottle not linked to the Creative Cloud? See how I have this little warning icon? I had the water bottle licensed. Not sure what happened, so let's fix it. Let's fix it together. If it takes too much time, then we're not going to worry about it, but I see the problem. So somehow I lost my link from my layer to the asset on the Creative Cloud, so that's why this little warning icon is here. So all I need to do is right-click and select Relink to Library Graphic, then select the image, and it went away. Oh no, it was right here just a second ago. Okay, move to the top. There it is. So select the graphic and click on Relink, and it should relink it and removes the watermark. So that happens sometimes. So if that happens with you, that's how you solve it. Right-click on the layer, select Relink to Graphic in Library, and then find it in your library. For some reason, I lost the link between the asset on my PSD and the asset on the library. So it happens sometimes, no big deal, easy to fix as you just saw. All right, so I'm just gonna remove this folder not to confuse you guys, and we're going to work with these two layers. Like I said, you will have a text layer on your document. We don't have to worry about it. I'm just gonna work with two layers for now to make things easy and simple and not get things cluttered in the working document, but you do have a text layer in case you want to add text to your project. I'm just looking at the chat just to make sure that there are no questions. All right, it looks like we have no questions, but we're gonna get started. So before we actually start masking anything, I just wanna make something very clear. I want everybody to understand one simple concept. I'm going to double click on the foreground color picker, and that's going to bring up this big beautiful box here, which is the foreground color picker. And actually I just lost my window where I had the chat, so let me bring it back. From some reason it went away and I can't see you guys, so I want to make sure that I have the chat window open in case you guys have questions. But anyway, I see you guys are back. But anyway, so we have this big beautiful window here that obviously allows us to pick any color that we want, right? But I want you to notice one thing. Every color has a property, and the property is the hue, saturation, and brightness. Hue means what color something is. You can see the numbers here changing the values under the H for hue. They change. See that? So it's something red, blue, green, yellow, whatever color, right? Saturation is the intensity. So if I select red, how intense is that red? Is it very intense or not intense at all? So zero saturation just basically means gray, black, or white. And 100% saturation is the most intense that hue could be. And then we have brightness. So how dark or how light is it? So if we go up, it's bright. If we go down, it's dark, right? So hue, saturation, and brightness. Those are the three components that make up basically every pixel, right? So we're gonna use that knowledge to mask the water bottle, because we're gonna separate the components and use blending modes to bring them back together. And you'll see what I mean by that in one moment. I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood that the three components are gonna play a big part in this stream. And I'm just looking at the chat, and Lois commented, "Hi Jesus, sorry I'm late. Don't be late tomorrow." No, just kidding. You can be late. You can watch this later. No worries. This is being recorded. So we have the water bottle and we have the background. So for this technique to work, you do need to be working with two things: the transparent object and a white background. If you don't have a white background, maybe it's like dark gray or light gray, you can fine tune the layer using adjustment layers to make the background white. Ultimately, you need a white background and a transparent object. In this case, we have a water bottle. And we are going to start by creating a layer mask, but the layer mask is only going to be meant to contain the water bottle. We're going to actually make the transparency using blending modes. So you can select the quick selection tool and click and drag on the water bottle to select it, or we can click on select subject and see how it does. Select subject is Adobe's artificial intelligence, Adobe Sensei, and it analyzes the image using machine learning technology. And look at the good job it did to select this water bottle. I think it's pretty good. Maybe I need to subtract from the selection by holding Alt on Windows, Option on the Mac, and clicking and dragging at the bottom. I went too far. That's okay. I'll just drag it back in. You don't have to worry about fine-tuning the selection too much at this point. Just make sure that you create a selection around the water bottle so that we can keep it contained. Then I'm going to create a group, and I'm going to create a layer mask on that group. So that selection that I made is now a mask on the new group that I created. And there's nothing inside of that group, but as you might have guessed, I'm going to drag the water bottle into that group. So let me just make sure that there's no questions so far. We're pretty good. All right. So we have this group that contains the water bottle. See that? So now we're going to use blending modes to strip the water bottle into different components so that we can get rid of the white. And we're going to blend them together, or stack them together rather, to create the illusion that we remove the white. I mean, we technically are. It's not really an illusion. We're hiding the white. It's really what we're doing. So I'm going to disable this layer, and I'm just going to press Control-J, Command-J on the Mac once to duplicate it, and I'll just call this, I'll call it luminosity. And then I'll press Control-J, Command-J on the Mac, and I'll call this one color. So we need to first get the luminosity of this water bottle and just keep that and not worry about the color. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into Image, Adjustments, Black and White, just press OK, and that's just going to turn the layer into a black and white layer, right? So black and white. I don't need to see the smart filter, so I'll click on that up pointing arrow to collapse it so that we have a clean layers panel and we have room to work with. So with this layer, now we have a black and white layer. For those of you that are a little more advanced and you know blending modes, you'll know of a blending mode that allows you to hide white pixels and keep everything else. So basically we keep black 100% and the different shades of gray give you different levels of transparency, but white completely disappears. So for those of you that know, that blending mode is multiply. See that? Multiply. So all the blending modes in this group, you see this little line here? Those blending modes disappear, make white disappear. So we'll just select multiply, right? So now we kept the transparent, the shadows of the image essentially. So now but you might notice that we lost the specular highlights. We lost the really, really bright areas that we may want. In this case, we obviously want the highlights of the bottle. So I'm going to press Control-J, Command-J on the Mac to duplicate that. And then I'm going to change the blending mode to the opposite blending mode. The blending mode that allows us to keep the bright areas but hide the dark areas, which is screen. And what I'm going to do now is simply go into Image, Adjustment, Levels, and I'm going to use the Levels adjustment to change the luminosity of the layer, which in turn will change the blend of the layer. So if I make the layer darker, notice how I start hiding more of those pixels. See that? So now my goal is to fine tune this so that I only keep the specular highlights and the highlights in the bottle, but the bottle's still transparent. I can press OK, and now I have basically a transparent bottle. I could do this one more time if I wanted to. I could press Control-J, Command-J on the Mac on the bottle layer, the original luminosity layer, and instead of working on the specular highlights, or highlights really, not necessarily just specular highlights, but I'll just call it specular highlights. I could also work like on the deep shadows. In this case, it's probably not necessary, but if you're working with a different image, you might need it. So deep shadows, basically I'll do the same thing. I'll just go into Image, Adjustment, Levels, and just make sure that I work with like the really, really deep shadows and fine tuning accordingly, so that I also have essentially midtones, deep shadows, and specular highlights. So notice how I'm separating each of the brightness values of the bottle and stacking them together using blending mode. So I'm removing the white, but then I want to keep some of the white, the highlights, and I gotta bring that back. So in my mind, I'm separating the image into all these little pieces and components and using blending modes to stack them on top of each other and blend them back in. And you might have already noticed the one thing that we're missing. We're missing the color. So remember, in the foreground color picker, I showed you guys that we have hue, which is what color something is, blue, green, yellow, whatever. saturation, the intensity of that color, and brightness, how dark or bright it is. So that's what we just worked on. We worked on brightness. So now we gotta work on hue and saturation. Luckily for us, we don't have to use two different blending modes for that. If you enable this color layer and you click on the blending mode dropdown, you'll see that at the very bottom you'll have 4 blending modes that control the components: hue, saturation, color, and luminosity. Hue and saturation is what we need to bring back. Luckily for us, the color blending mode is a combination of hue and saturation, no brightness. So if I just go into color, notice how I bring back the color of the image and it applies it to my stack of layers to create the effect of that water bottle coming back. And I can reduce the opacity if it's too intense to try to make it match the scene. Totally up to you. The one thing I do have to do is that the bottle cap is semi-transparent, because we were essentially working just on the plastic, which is transparent, but the cap itself is not transparent. So that's the one thing that we have to Photoshop back in from the original image. So all I will need to do is select the original image and just make a copy of the cap. I can just press Control J, Command J on the Mac, and drag the cap all the way to the top, and there it is. So you can see now, let me disable there we go. I'll disable the background. So you can see now that I separated the white from the bottle, and we have this super, super cool effect by removing the white just by using blending modes. So you can see that before and after. So what I could do now is I could apply the colors of the background to my water bottle to make it seem like it's part of that scene. One of the ways that you can do that is by pressing Control J, Command J on the Mac. I'm duplicating the background. I'm going to drag it up. Sorry about that. It's going to be outside of the group. So actually, it doesn't need to be outside of the group. It just needs to be on top of the group. So this is not really that important, but if you click and drag a layer into the group, it'll place it on the very top, which is what I want. If you wanted to click and drag a layer into a group and place it somewhere else that is not the very top, you need to hold Shift on Windows and Mac and just drag it in there, and it'll go to the bottom of the layer stack. So I caught my hand going into the Shift key because I do that often, but in this case I didn't need to hold the Shift key. The point is that now we have the background copy inside of that group, and I want to apply this as a color to the layers below. But I want to remove all the detail from the image first. I just really want the big blotches of color. I don't want the detail. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and I'm just going to blur this guy. See how the inside of the bottle is getting blurred? See that? So just blur it like so, change the blending mode to color, and then adjust the opacity accordingly. So it'll be up to you how much of that color goes into the water bottle. If you think it's affecting the bottle cap too much, like I think it's doing there, you can create a layer mask and paint with black to hide. Black hides, white reveals. So I'll just paint with black just one time like that, and then I can go into Edit, Fade. Edit Fade always reduces the opacity or blending mode of the last thing that you did in Photoshop. So in this case, I painted with black, so Fade would allow me to reduce the opacity and change the blending mode of that brush stroke. So all I'm going to do is reduce the opacity of that brush stroke, because I thought at 100% it's too strong, so I can just bring a little bit of the red back. And obviously you can stay here and fine tune it all day. So I'm just looking at the time to see how much time I have to show you a whole bunch of things. Now the next thing I wanted to show you is that you can come in here and you could just make a selection out of this area, press Control J, Command J on the Mac, and you could then go into Filter, Liquify, and you could just liquify that piece to make it seem like the bottle is distorting the background. And under, let me see, I'm under mask options. See, like I'm over here trying to look at, here we go, under view options, we have the show backdrop, so we can just do all layers, we can just do background, we can just do the group or whatever. But the point is that you can use these controls so that you can bring back the water bottle, and then I could use the for warp tool, this one here, and use the right bracket key on the keyboard to make that larger, and I can just start distorting the water bottle. Obviously, I'm going fairly quickly here. In your project, make sure that you take some time to distort the pixels, because if they look exactly the same as they do in the background, then it won't be a realistic bottle effect. So I'm just going quickly here. So something like that. You get the idea. I'll press OK. I have my distortion, and all I need to do now is just bring that in. I use that keyboard shortcut I mentioned earlier. If you hold Shift and drag something into a group, it'll place it at the bottom of the layer stack, which is where I wanted this. So now we have the before and the after. And the distortion is not 100% perfect, but that's okay. It gives the illusion that there's something going on in there. I probably made this little bump here a little too high, so I probably would bring it back if I had a little bit more time. And what I can do now is to finalize the scene is I can put all of this, I can hold Shift and click on both the layer background and the group and put that into a smart object so that I can treat it as a single unit. So I can go into filter, camera raw, and now I can make it maybe hotter, maybe adjust the exposure, adjust the highlights, shadows, all that good stuff. Maybe drag the texture slider, vibrance, which is controlled saturation. You can saturate pixels, or it protects pixels that are not saturated, that are already saturated, and it protects skin tones. And maybe we could do some effects, like just add a little bit of grain. I'm a big fan of adding grain just because it makes it look like it's more like film. Notice how smooth the image is. So if we had just a tiny little bit of grain, it makes it feel more like film, and I just feel that it looks better. It probably doesn't make a huge difference when you're looking at it from this zoom level, but if you get in there close, to me at least, it makes a big difference. And then maybe I can add a little bit of a vignette, and I can press OK. And you can see that just by treating it as a single layer, we were able to take something that looks sort of flat and just push it a little bit further. So I know that I went fairly quickly here. This was recorded, so you can come back and watch it. But the main concepts that I wanted you to learn in this stream is that all pixels have three components: hue, saturation, and brightness. And with blending modes, you can control them and stack them together to isolate certain things or separate certain things, like I did here with the white background. So next time that you're working with an image that has a transparent object and it is up against a white background, now you'll know how to separate that white background and place it on pretty much any foreground that you like. You know what? I just realized I forgot one thing, and we have some time. I can double click on the smart object, and that'll open up the smart object in a new tab, and we can continue editing it. So the two things that I forgot. Number one is I can place the because there's a big bright light, so it might be hitting that water bottle. So if I wanted the bright light to hit the water bottle, I'll create a new layer, and I would paint with white on that area right there, like so. Double click on the side of the layer to bring up the layer style window, and I can change the blending mode to color dodge and uncheck transparency shapes layer. See that? See when I uncheck that, how it looks? It just looks like this really big bright light. And under fill, if you adjust the fill, you can adjust basically the intensity of that light. And then I can click and drag to maybe position it better. So now we have a nice little highlight there. And if we have a highlight, then we might also need a shadow. And since I'm running out of time, I'm just gonna make a really, really quick shadow. I'll just create a layer here and basically just paint with black there and reduce the opacity. Actually, you know what? I don't know why I painted with black. Shadows are never black. You need to select a color that's like the color of the shadow, in this case like a really, really dark brown, and paint with that. That looks more realistic. And something like that. Obviously, you could do a much better job. I just quickly wanted to show you how you can paint that shadow in. You can close the smart object, save it, and all the adjustments that we applied with Camera Raw would be applied to the new layers we brought in, and our project looks much better. We're running out of time, And I just wanted to say thank you so much for everyone who is here. I want to mention one more time that you can go into behance.net/challenge/Photoshop. Click on the big blue button. The files that I'm working with are here. If you've missed any of the other videos, go ahead and click on the watch video buttons to check them out. Make sure that you go onto the Discord page, that one right above my head, and go into this page and show your work. Let me see your work. Let us check it out. Under current challenge, you can see the work that people are creating with the daily creative challenges. Also, don't forget to fill out the feedback form. You have until tomorrow to fill this out, and you could be entered to win a 1-year Creative Cloud subscription. So it's a pretty good price for just filling out a few questions. So hopefully you win. All right, guys, thank you so much for being with me, for being here with me today. I really, really hope that you enjoyed the stream. Thank you, everybody. I got like 30 seconds to get out of here. So thank you so much. Stay tuned. We got more live streams coming. Wonderful to seeing everybody here today. Thank you for your support. And I'll be seeing you again tomorrow. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Bye.